Hello, everybody watching. Thank you for coming. Thanks for meeting me up here. We're a little late to broadcast here, but here we are. Broadcasting first live broadcast of 2019. Let's make the most of it, shall we? And I guess that would mean pretty much being direct, getting right to the point, and not wasting your time on riffraffy talk. Although I like to do that. Today, as per the title, I thought I'd go over pretty much the same old thing this channel is always harping about, how to get you into understanding modes really quick as a guitarist that only knows the pentatonic box. So, let's say here you are, staring at your guitar fretboard, and for some reason you've got to play, or you feel like playing in a mode or practicing modes. Let's say you want to you're trying to learn modes, you want to know what this mood expression is about in music. You've heard that these modes can help you express emotion, and that's piqued your interest because you're like, hey, that's why I'm playing guitar, to express my emotions here. So you've piqued your interest in modes, but you've asked your guitar teacher and they couldn't answer you, and it just seems all really confusing to you. So let me try to straighten you out on that today. I'm fiddling with my phone here while I talk to you so that I can pipe up a YouTube backing track to help us understand all this. And to get that done, I'm going to have to turn around here and get the phone plugged into the system here, which I should have done before I went live here. So this bad YouTube live right here. Still getting everything ready. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. And let's search out backing tracks. And just kind of random here, I'm going to pick out a random note here. I'll try to make it outside of some normal pick, like the key of C major. Let's go to F sharp. And we're going to get typed in here. F sharp. Typing in on my phone here. Chord is too short to show you. F sharp. Modal. Backing track. And feel free to, what would the chords be to play a D Dorian mode? Oh, hey, cool. So right off the bat here, let's start with this. Red Walrus has a question. Sure, I had something set up, but let's go with real questions here because that's what it's all about. And yeah, what would the chords be to play a D Dorian mode? Well, really think about this. What mode? You said Dorian. What note did you say? D. So right there is your chord to play a D Dorian mode. Meaning this: if your piece of music, you're going to really have to create this Dorian sound for your audience. So one of the rules of the game that I would use to basically try to evoke that sound, although these rules are like your choice, you can not use them, you can change them, but one rule of thumb would be to start your composition with the chord you're trying to, or the mode you're trying to define. So if you're trying to do D Dorian, start with a D minor chord, because what we should know here is that Dorian, it's kind of cool because this does lead into what I had set up for the lesson plan today. One thing I always know about modes that nobody taught me, but I learned early on and created this little categorization system that's made it real simple for me. This is what it made simple for me. It may not make it simple for you, but you have your happy modes and you have your sad modes. Basically, you have major and minor. Pretty simple. And in that, it's 3 and 3. So it was easy to memorize a category of 3 and 3. So on the minor side is Dorian. Dorian is found on the minor side. So we know it's a minor mode. And you say D. So would it be with the chords in a C progression, D minor, E minor, F, G, A? Yeah, because you're starting on D minor and returning to D minor. Now, let's say your progression really, as it leaves D minor and goes to that E minor and the F, let's say it really dwells on the F for a while. Well, that's going to kind of, if you're just like soloing over that with another instrument, it's going to turn that solo sound into, I think, a more of a Lydian sound at that moment, and then perhaps return to the minor sound. I think also you can think about it like this: the longer you play any one of those chords, the more it's going to be harder to nail the Dorian sound. But if it's starting on D minor, maybe that's got an extra bar, and then it's quickly over E minor, F to G to A minor. Yeah, I think you're going to be nailing the Dorian sound. Let me try that here. Let's try that. I've got a looper pedal, and hey, Red Walrus, thanks. You're welcome, Red Walrus. Thank you for the question. Actually, this is making this channel work, and you're the guy doing it, so thank you. Let's try that. Let's loop that and see what happens. So D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor. Okay, first I want to save something that is already on there, so all right, let's record this progression, and what's the experiment? Well, we could dwell on some chords to see if it changes. Let's try just to keep it at D Dorian first and see what happens. So we're gonna go like this. Here's the experiment. Here's what we'll do. I'll run through your chords progression twice, and then I'm going to return to that C chord, which is the parent key of D Dorian, is C. All modes have a parent key, and the parent key of D Dorian is C. So I'll return to that C, and I want you to, the audience, to hear the same old notes being played, but how the flavor will change from maybe perhaps something sad to something at rest, and perhaps major sounding. Let's see if that holds true. So here we go. Let's get a drum beat, and then we're going to record some chords, then a bass line, and then should be bass line, then chords, but we're just going to do it like this. Okay, so here we go. messed up that intro a bit, but here we go. Alright, sorry for all that wasting time there. I'm going to re-record that because I got this part in the beginning where I didn't record anything. So here, let's erase it. Alright, we cleared that out now. Trying again here with the... Oh yeah, that's what we're going for. Here we go. Yeah, let me try that again. Sorry about all that. But I got it now. What I'm going to do is this. I'm dwelling on the D minor, and I'm going to take it through the E, F, G, A progression twice in a row, and then nail it back to the D minor and see if that will create... Remember, I still got to play the solo over this that I want to evoke. It's the same old notes as C major, but we want to make it sound like D Dorian just using a progression. So how would we do that? Like this. Here we go. Like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. chord sounded minor there until I went to the C chord. Yes, that was the C chord, or the C major scale is all I dealt with the entire solo. And it sounds Dorian because of the chords, not because of the scale that I'm playing. That's when way guitar teachers make it so confusing for students because they think that they have to solo all these different ways, and it's really the same way. You are in it, but it's not repetitive because you're always customizing the framework of that solo to kind of fit the emotion of the mode you're playing. You know, you'll bend different notes and you'll emphasize and you'll build the tension in different places, you know, just by using your ear and your own. That's where your own judgments and tastes are allowed to shine through on the same old basic mechanisms. Like basically like giving you like the core ways that you can think about all this stuff, I think. So yeah, so that was the C major scale that I played. I heard you avoid the parent key chord C to bring out the mode sound more. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I did throw the C in there somewhere, but I noticed on one round it didn't really show up. It just was so immersed in that D Dorian sound, and it wasn't syncing up to the drums exactly right either. So it kind of gave it a jazzy feel, but at the same time, some parts sounded probably pretty awkward, I thought. But it's always hard to listen as exactly to what you sound like, you know, as you play. A lot of times you think something sounded awesome and you listen to the tape and you're like, no fucking way, that sounds like shit or something. And then other people are like, oh my God, that was great. What are you talking about? It's just, you never know, right? Thanks to Walmart for the sinking chair here. Let's go back up. Yes, floor number 2, guitar. Okay. Yeah, and you know what? Let's now do a professional modal backing track on YouTube Reno here. Let's see if I can get this chord. It's wrapped around shit here. Just for you, right? Come on. There we go. Okay. Let's see about me. Who sang that song? Come see about me. Some Motown stuff there. An incredible era of music, if you ask me, but it's beyond the scope of our talk here today. F-sharp modal backing track based on YouTube. Let's hit enter there and see what happens. What the fuck? Sorry, it just disappeared. Let's try again. F sharp Mixolydian backing track. Let's try that. An F sharp Mixolydian. So let's say the flavor of your day was F sharp Mixolydian. You just had to make you heard something in F sharp Mixolydian and you wanted to create something in F sharp Mixolydian. So what would you do? How would you get there? How would you find that? Because that's not in C major, right? Lord's sakes, I'm sure you don't want to hear me do that for an hour and a half. Yeah, so great. Still has some watchers. That's good. So what would the parent scale be? B major, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, G, and A sharp. For B major is the parent scale of B major. Does that make sense? Like B, let me see which B major you're talking about here. We got what? B, C sharp. Yeah, that's... So what would the parent scale be for F sharp Mixolydian? B major. Yeah, exactly correct. Yeah. You were 100% right. You got it, man. Did you learn that from anything that you learned here, or just something you already knew? So I'll go over really quick for the audience here, you too, Mr. Red Walrus, about how I would go about finding F sharp Mixolydian or any other mode. First, I would, resort to what I've already mentally memorized here. Draw yourself a little fun list like here, so you can get a mental picture of what's going on, and it won't take too long before you just memorize a simple 3 and 3. Mixolydian, I know, is on my major side of things, so I can quickly use my pentatonic just to get me like in the ballpark with 5 notes, leaving only 2 notes remaining to be right on the money with all 7 notes, thereby leaving only 5 notes as the like tension, like uber tension, or you might even as a beginner just call these avoid notes. So beginner avoid notes. An intermediate player will use these as, or perhaps maybe an intermediate player will know Victor Wooten's trick about when you land on one of these, how to just quickly to slide up 1 note, and you'll know that it's, any one of these 5 avoid notes is surrounded by a good note. Like, you can see it's always in between, like perhaps this pentatonic scale. It's always a good note there. Anyways, so an intermediate player will know the trick. A beginner will just avoid them. An intermediate player will know the slide up or slide down trick, and an advanced player will use these as special tension notes. Okay, make sense? Okay. So that's a little off topic there, but just to give you a handle there right off the bat on all 12 notes of the scale here, that's all we have to deal with. 5 will be avoid notes. We're looking for 7. We've got 5 nailed already, just on the thought that Mixolydian is in our happy... Well, just on the thought that we can use pentatonic. See this pentatonic, the one for the pentatonic box that you've already known? Part of our method of keeping it simple is using concepts you already know, basic concepts. So we know that our root notes for this shape changes. You can put the root note on this side for your happy major scales, major root, or you put the root on this side of the shape, meaning that's your, if someone says F sharp this, G sharp that, C major this, you're going to be, well, C major, right? You're going to be, some note major this, some note minor, put your note here, and this will be your minor pentatonic shape. The same shape works for major and minor. Don't have to worry about how it all goes down right now. That will eventually reveal itself to you. But you just have to accept it. It's a cool, simple thing. Okay, so you have that. We really only need those 2 notes to be in full Mixolydian. But right now, what we have is, let's say we're using F sharp Mixolydian as our example here. Let's get a pencil here to, where's our F sharp note? Well, we know it's right here, right? F sharp is there, there, and there. Well, this is one factoid we need to know where F sharp is on our fretboard. So we know it's there, there, there. And we know the octave works like that. And then therefore like that. Oops, something's gone wrong. And we'll be right back. All right, sorry about all that. Anyways, continuing our finding of our F sharp notes, which is way up the fretboard here. We've got that, we've got this. So there, we found our F sharp all around the fretboard in our angular pattern that we always find things in. We know we're going to address that with our, someone says F sharp Mixolydian, or you want F sharp Mixolydian, you know you have an F sharp note, you know you're going to use your major pentatonic scale for Mixolydian. So we're going to find it on our E string here, which is the most convenient one is here. Won't really fit properly right there. So right off the bat, if you start playing a pentatonic scale shape right there, you're in the game. And what you should be studying or knowing, graphing out to get memorized is the rest of your pentatonic shapes, which are pretty easy to memorize. We got a flat wall here and a flat wall there. And that creates a fun little scale pattern here. Just remember that wall. As long as you remember this scale, you've automatically got that scale, which is in between that scale. And then you've got this one is almost identical to the original pentatonic with a couple of slight alterations, so it wasn't very hard for me to remember in the beginning. I'm sure you've memorized it too. And where else are we going from there? What are we doing here? Yeah, I think we're back to our fifth row here, which is back to our beginning. And we're behind the rest of the scale there, so we could fill this in pretty quick up and down the fretboard. This is an easy spot here where there's just simply 2 rows. Righto. All right, so wow, at long last, all mapped out, all across our fretboard in short order. If you can draw it out, you know, you got it in your mind. Once it's in your mind's eye, you know all your notes to some couple cool key notes in there, just on the pentatonic alone. And it allows you to create its own little flavor network if you just jam that around the fretboard. So you know that, great. Now you want to expand this into full-on Mixolydian. So how would you get that done? So let's go back to where our F sharp was using our major pentatonic. All we got to do is fill in some gut notes here. Let's refer to this little math chart. We made certain that we are just, sure without any mathematical uncertainty that 5 plus 2 equals 7. All we need are 2 more notes. Simple. 2 notes. Simple. Now, you might think, yeah, but where do you plug those notes in? It's so crazy. No, it's not. Keep it simple. Where do we plug those notes in? We're going to plug them into this pentatonic framework that we have here. Let's highlight that framework that we're studying right here. All right, right in between here. Here's where we're studying. Now, back to our basically have 3 versions of this. You can plug 2 notes into this pentatonic scale in 3 ways. Let me show you a quick pentatonic drawing right here and show you how it all can go down. Let's make it in pen here so it's written in stone. This is a bona fide pentatonic scale. All right, everybody following along? You've got a pentatonic scale. You want to plug 2 notes in to make it a scale. You've got your choice. You can plug 2 notes into here and also here. So your scale would be 1, 2, oops. As is above, so is below. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Blah blah blah. On and on. There's that version. But keep in mind what you saw there. Keep in mind this part of the scale. The part that falls always, there's basically 2 parts to a pentatonic. The gut part here. The big box. Sorry for the loud noise here. Loud guitar. Get ready. And then the double part here. 1 4 1 4. And the top string is just copying. It's 1/2 of that. Okay, so you're always filling in the gut notes inside of this part here. And somewhere along the outside here. Okay. So on for the darker scales, you use this side. Before I actually even say that, what's the balance? Let's go with the balance first, and we'll talk about lighter and darker. So the balance uses 1 of each side, okay, and you're also hanging on 1 of each side of the box. So in the gut section here, we're going to be here and here, and outside here, we're going to be here and there. And sorry, I messed all that up. Don't listen to me. I'm totally wrong. But at least I caught it, right? Hopefully, I was just testing you guys out, see if you guys would scream in the comments. Because when they both went the same, I was like, wait, that's wrong. It's got to be opposite of each other. It's kind of weird. There's like always this weird symmetry to everything on the guitar that you'll notice once you start graph papering everything. In this instance, for the balance, it uses 1 note on each side of this system, and it angles this way, and then it angles the opposite way. as a balance, right? Kind of weird. Anyway, so in putting those two ideas together, you get a what we'll name the Aeolian Pentatonic. So this is our balanced version, and our balanced version is indeed Ionian major. So as long as my root note is playing here, this would be the balanced scale in major would be Ionian. What's the balanced scale if my root was playing on that note of the same exact scale? I would be playing in Aeolian. So just to show you quick here. All right, let's turn this into Batman. No, let's turn this into Phrygian. Phrygian is darker, so we would be on this side. Or if our root was major, what do we have across from each other? We have Mixolydian and Phrygian here. So, well, since we're ending up at Mixolydian, let's actually do Dorian and Lydian really quick. So Dorian and Lydian are both on the brighter side of the balanced middle scales. So what does that mean, brighter and lighter? It just means like this one's maybe a little less serious. Something about it sounds a little happier. Lydian is, a little more buoyant. But it's somewhat unsettling, so it's not considered the major scale. The major is a little bit more relaxed, so it's just the natural major scale. And then Mixolydian adds like a kind of a funkier twist, and it's a little bit it's somewhat fallen apart. So it's got its own cool little sound, and that's like a little bit on the darker side of things. It's a little bit more tense. So that's considered that side of the other side of major, while the Lydian is on the brighter side of major. Same with Aeolian. In case you need this reference here. Phrygian is on the darker side of things, the more Latin, Egyptian, really out there, very, very, getting very cultural. And Dorian is has a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. It's still sad, but there's some hope in there. And if that's what your mood is, then you choose Dorian. If you're a little bit more on the serious side of things, you might be an Aeolian. And if you want to just get really flavorful, you're going to be in making something in Phrygian. Metallica worked with it a lot, and so did Joe Satriani and many of other artists. Maybe it's all worn out to your ear. Maybe you can do something with it. Okay, so if we were doing Dorian, we're balanced on this side of the scale. We'll consider this is the brighter side, and this is the darker side. So here, of course, if we're on the right side here, we're on the left side here. And there you have it. If we plug in 2 notes here, we've now got a 7-note scale. As is above, so is below. So right there you've got... Okay, so I was trying to emphasize the major root there. It really wasn't working out to my satisfaction. So we showed you, just to recap here, you could be on one side and the other. We could be all the way on the right side. Now, if we're all the way on the left side here, we're going to be all the way on the right side here at the top. The other side, we're on the right side on the bottom. And memorize those 3 codes, and you've got the ability to find all your modes really quick, because you're just going to need this little formula to plug in to create that final, to be exactly, turn this pentatonic into the exact right scale, 7-note scale. You might think right there, like, how does a pentatonic turn into that scale? It's just as simple as you're using 5 notes out of 12. How many more do you have, right? You have 7 more notes. You need 2 of them to make your 5 notes 7 notes, so it's stands to reason that you just would need those 2 notes. I think I just got really confusing. I even confused myself there, so whatever. Stay on that side there and this side here, and we'll have the scale we need. If we plug that in with our root on, what did we say? We're playing an F sharp. What is my mode here? F sharp. So we're going to put this note on the F sharp, play this scale, we should get a Mixolydian sound. Now right there you should say, hey, wait, Mark, that sounded like... that just resolved to that note, which is B major. I thought we were in F sharp. I think something, well, first of all, I was a half step down when I started playing my scale, so that just screwed everything up. But when you don't have anything to relate to, you may just, when you noodle around, you might just gravitate toward a typical ending note, which is based on kind of where I started and where I went, ended up as the 1 note of the scale, the Ionian note. So I just sounded major. So what I just did there was take that scale and make it sound like it's I was playing on the parent key, but we need the mode, which is found in that parent key of F sharp. So I'll show you how. It's the backing track that turns the same exact notes into this Mixolydian sound. So final thing here is this, though. There's a little bit more. We've arrived at a 7-note scale Mixolydian, which is basically the key we need to plug the rest of the scale in to create a quick idea of what the entire fretboard, all the right notes on the entire fretboard, and how to get across it really easy, which is basically jumping from pentatonic to pentatonic, because there's a line of this shape actually repeats itself again, and this using little box shapes here, 2 basic shapes, 2 ideas get me across the entire fretboard. It's more complex to explain than the actual idea. Is so simple for me to instantly take this box and turn it into the entire fretboard. So let me show you how I do that really quick in my mind's eye. As we've seen here, we've quickly turned our pentatonic into our F sharp major pent. Now, a few seconds ago, we showed you how to add in this note. Let's make them orange here. The add-in notes. We're going to add in our orange note here to turn this into Mixolydian. Now, at this place where I'm drawing these orange notes, notice this. That there, we need to be on what? This side of the... Oh, I just fucked all that up, dear God. So, okay. I done messed it up. Yeah, that needs to go right here. And then again, right there. These 2 notes keep making a square. And I just know that that square dances around the fretboard in this angular motion. There's only 2 rows of this box on the entire fretboard. Since it's encompassing 2 strings, it uses group 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6 in 1 row. And as is above, so is below, gets you to the next shape, which uses a half. It uses the 6th string as the odd man out, and the 1 string is the odd man out, and you group the 5 and 4 here, and 3 and 2. And we also remember that the reason this never jumped out at you is because there's a string shift here which corrupts our box. Gives that a little funky shift. So we got our funky box in this row. And we got this shape down here, which anytime I'm in this shape here, I always recognize what I call the Aeolian box. The blues box, the pentatonic shape, also shows up right here. As the Aeolian. Boom, 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 bang, bang. And I know I've got a big square right here because here's our bottom half of our half square line. And that leads to using the top string, which brings us, if there's a half box there, there's a full box there. If there's a full box there, there's a half box there. That's one rule of thumb. And if there's a half box there, well, guess what? You always know that that is the tip of your Aeolian scale, your Aeolian. So once I'm there, my mind knows that all day long as Aeolian pentatonic. If I can quickly just jump up to my square box here, well, I quickly know all this area of the fretboard as my Dorian pentatonic box. As a hip-joined neighbor to Dorian, it's like a Siamese twin there where it's joined at the hip. There is, I quickly know I'm in the Phrygian scale, which is just a name we're going to use to call it that right now. And from then, I'm just basically back into my Aeolian pentatonic. So as you can see here, we're based on a pentatonic shape here, here, and crossing over there, and then back to right here. There's a little gray area in the middle there that took me a little while to get used to and kind of get my mind to see what was going on right in through there, but the shape is very standard and basic right up through there, so it's really easy to know where you are and what you're doing. So, my friends, it's really quick. It's a snap. It's so easy to get across the fretboard. And while we've discussed using just simply this square box of half steps, what we should ultimately know is this square box of half steps is made up of a master pattern, which also gets us across the fretboard. And as we've discussed in other lessons, it's basically this pattern. This is the only shape to the major scale on the guitar fretboard, irregardless that when you get it all laid out, it looks like this. What you're seeing here in this mess is the manifestation of this pattern. Let me play it for you. You may recognize this as what your guitar teacher taught you as the Mixolydian Scale. Before I go into that any deeper, Red Walrus asks, how are the boxes connected? And I believe he was talking about the first series of the square box. And the rule of thumb is that they're always connected here. Right there is your joining thing. Now, every time it passes over the B string shift, you will experience a little bit of a hiccup in either that in the row where they're there's 3 complete boxes, there will be a break right there, creating the bottom of the Dorian shape if you haven't already recognized that jump out at you. Now, in the so they always connect that way. Another way that these always connect is through connecting this box. It basically appears through how this box butts up to itself on the fretboard. Rule of thumb, these are your connector notes, meaning that when you're in this box, you're always in the next available box connected all across the fretboard, or at least as far as it will extend in its own area. So, like, for example, if this was the G and A note, this will also be the G and A note of the same exact pattern, top to bottom, lined up that way. So that gets you this way and this way. What if you wanted to move side to side? Well, this pattern always butts up to itself this way and then this way. So this row right here is this row right here, this original row. So there's 2 more next to it. See the master shape? Once again, repeating itself here. Now, when it butts up to this, what do you see? A square box, and that's where the square box is coming from. And it's easy to jam on. It's a great place to go fast on, because it's only a half step apart. So you're always jamming on it, and whenever you're jamming on it, you're somewhere in between your master boxes. So once you can start snaking from box to box, you're basically going all across the fretboard in any direction you want at any time. So there, in a nutshell, my friends, is how to do it. So Walrus says, can you label them Dorian, Ionian, etc., so I can understand? Yes, I can, and I will right now. The reason I don't is because, like at first I couldn't understand the difference between, like, well, if this scale is called Dorian, how come it doesn't help me play this Dorian mode? Because that's not what it's all about. But it does make sense to name it that, because as a technical, the pattern technically is going from one note to one note. It would basically not sound like it's original, like a Dorian. See, it gets confusing really fast to explain, but yeah, I won't really be playing them. And it's just basically, if you go from D to D in the C major scale, you just basically, instead of starting from C, you just simply went from the D note and ended at the next D note. That will get you the basics of Dorian, but it won't really be like Dorian music. You won't really know how to turn that into music. But let's name them. So, and I'll show you why we would name them that. So here we've got the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5, and the 6 here. Actually, to make this make sense, let's use note names here. So D, E, and F. Notice we've got no sharps or flats here. The next note on the guitar fretboard down here would be G. This would be A. And I just fucked something up here. Oh. What did I do wrong? Okay. I went upside down here. So yeah. Phew. Man, got me confused for a second. We need this pattern for the Dorian scale. It's basically, let's draw it first, then we'll plug in our note names. we'll use note names so we can find out, like, why would we call this shape Dorian? Here's what I'll do to make this all make sense. Okay. Did I draw that right? Yeah. There's one pentatonic shape plus its extra notes. Okay. I'm going to draw 2 more pentatonic shapes. Hopefully those are still on the screen here. Now you see why I use pencil when you do this. Okay, finally, at long last, 3 pentatonic shapes. So we already created one here where we plugged in our squares here and there, and we'll notice that if we plugged in D right there, and by the way, we'll call this our Dorian shape. And we know that in the key of C, D is Dorian. So let's plug in our D note and see if it all holds true. And what do you know? You find all the whole notes in each of the square boxes, no half steps. So you got your B, C, E, F is the box. G, so we got our B, C, E, F box here. And you've always basically got... Okay, so we call that, I call that Dorian, and you could, that's for minor. You could also do, you could even think of this as your, what would that be? That would be, if this was major, that would be Lydian. Instead of calling this the Dorian scale, you could call this the Dorian Lydian, because if you put the major note here, you would be in, the major note is now an F, or the note that's your root note is now an F. If you make the F your root, then you're in F Lydian, D Dorian. So guitar teachers just favor the minor pentatonic name, I guess, and they'll call that D Dorian, leading you to some confusion. But yeah, so let's call this one, I always used to mess up this name. I think I'm better at pronouncing it now. Phrygian. 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 Okay, so you want to plug that in basically on the other side. This is the other side. This is the darker side of Dorian, or I'm sorry, well, of Dorian and of Aeolian. This is falling on the dark side, so we're going to go to this side, put our square here, and we know it's always an opposite, so we're putting our square against in our 3-box shape. We're putting it right here, building our square here. And so let's think about the key of C again. So we'll plug in all our, we'll see if all our whole notes plug in and we end up with any sharp or flats. We know we messed something up. So we've got, in the key of C, we know Phrygian is based on the 3rd note, and the darker side of the, if you were confused, you just return to your notes. We know that the darker side of major is Mixolydian, right? Yeah, I messed all that up. I pronounced it funny just to be silly while I change pages here, but we've lost our page, so we're going to go with just, like, holy shit, we messed everything up here. Oh my god. Darker, neutral, Ionian, Mixolydian. So, now we lost our little work page here. What are we going to do? Oh my gosh. Okay. So on our darker side here, Phrygian and Mixolydian. And in the key C, that would be E Phrygian, G Mixolydian. So that would mean if we would put our root here, we would have an E, and what do you know, just up the scale is a G. E, F, G. Should be A, and we should get a B, C, E, F square. What do you know? B, C, E, F square. B, C, E, F square. Now, as you move these patterns up and down the neck, all the notes will change, and you know, notes will show up in there, and it'll just be automatic. You won't have to worry about what notes are in a scale. You just know a pattern as a guitarist. It's the easy thing about it. The instrument, the stringed instrument with a fretboard. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So D, G, A. All right, and what do you know? We got all whole notes. The equation held through true, and we've got our, if we put our root note here, it's E Phrygian. If we put our root note here, it's Mixolydian, right? Making sense to you, Mr. Red Walrus? And our final relationship is our balanced scale, which would put a note here, making our half box here. We're going to have a note here, which is going to create our split box, our full box, but split from the A and B string shift. So that should be our B, C, E, F squared box. What do you know? B, C, E, F, B, C, B, C. Natural, major, natural, minor. We got C major. Look at that. There's a C in the major root box. We'd have C, Ionian, and Aeolian. That's what you'd call. That's why these shapes get these boxes get these names. But if you wanted to create any of these actual modal sounds, plug this formula in to get all the notes, but make sure that your root note is correct to draw out the Mixolydian sound. Like, for example, like, you know, I showed you how to play, because I really wanted to nail the sound into your ear, make it interesting and fun for you, by going with a full-on orchestrated backing track that you can find on YouTube. It's got a ton of instruments, really dynamically nailing what you need to really sound like you're in these modes without much fuss. However, you can create these modes by really nailing these scales, and just by playing a bass note, either a drone note that you plug into a keyboard or an effect that just plays a steady, low, in this case, F sharp note, or you loop a bass line just thumping an F sharp note, just that note. You don't have to plug in anything else. If you play these, put these boxes in the right spot, if you put that root note in the right spot, you'll get one of these modal sounds start coming out of your solo. Same old notes, but as long as the root note, so like for example, if I just stayed in this box and the bass line keeps thumping that G, it's going to kind of get a twisted sound like Mixolydian. All these notes will sound different. But as soon as that starts thumping D, these exact same notes will sound sad and minor. It's kind of neat. Try it for yourself sometime. Back to business here. E, F, G, A, B, C, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, E, and this one, as we remember, if we're in our neutral scale, so it uses half of one side, half of the other to balance itself, our balance scale. Here it uses half here and half here. E, F, B, C, B, C, E, F, B, C, E, F. It's our half step square. If you know major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's always our mi, fa, ti, do area. Anytime you find that box in the major scale, no matter what scale you're in, that's always going to be your half steps. It's a neat thing about this pattern on the guitar. It locks in some things and makes them, the same every time and easy to learn. You have to just kind of accept it, really. You have to just go, oh my God, it's really that easy. Oh, and once your brain starts locking in what doesn't move and what does move, then it starts going, oh, okay, I get this now. Okay, so here are the relationships. You can see why they would call this an Aeolian scale in the C Ionian scale, which would be apparent if you were using this root note. But let's say we were using this root note. You can see you'd start at the root note A. This scale starts at A. So it's going from A to A and over to A. And then it has these extra two notes at the end. So all considered, this gets its name Aeolian because you're playing from the A note of the C major scale. That's the 6. It's got that neutral minor sound, so it's the considered that Aeolian scale. But does it get you to play Aeolian? Well, yes, in the way that if your root note was here and you just played in this box, yeah, you'll sound like you're playing in Aeolian, really cool. And half the solo to Stairway to Heaven just uses this box in one part of the fretboard. But once you need some other parts, well, actually, like a lot of rock solos, that just uses the same box an octave up. So you really just need this box for a lot of classic rock solos. You will just be soloing out of one of these boxes. But if you wanted to use your whole up and down, all across the fretboard jam, like your real guitar heroes that just make guitar records, like Joe Satriani and perhaps Eric Johnson and Steve Vai and the like, when they're not experimenting with exotic scales like harmonic minor and melodic minor, which incidentally are more symmetrical on the guitar fretboard, so they could be perhaps easier to internalize than the major scale. Those guys are doing that, but they're all across the fretboard. They're not stuck in these boxes. That's why I don't like to just use these names. It just confuses students into thinking, okay, this is Aeolian. This little box here is Aeolian, and nothing else will ever be Aeolian on my fretboard, and it's not true. It's your whole fretboard. It's just which one of these conjoining boxes, which one of the root notes is playing. And this also shows that in, here's, major C major scale notes, C major scale notes, C major scale notes. These are all little parts of the C major scale on your fretboard. We started with what? A pentatonic shape, a pentatonic shape, and a pentatonic shape. There are 3 pentatonic shapes every time you play a major scale on your fretboard. So, okay, at 1 hour and 15 minutes, I think we did, do you just avoid the Locrian scale? Well, yes, let's say kind of like yes, for these reasons. Like Mixolydian scale or mode, kind of like you can think of it both ways. As far as like climbing up a scale pattern of notes, like obviously, like I think you're understanding what this lesson is about. So no, you don't, not a pattern. However, the Locrian mode, creating in Locrian, well, I find it, like most composers, if I could call myself a composer, right? Consider that one very enigmatic. It's an enigma scale. It doesn't resolve to itself, so it always kind of sounds like it's never answering its own question. It's never coming to a resolve. So because of that, it has a very distinct flavor that's really only useful under very distinct ideas. So it does have a purpose, and you might want to be, and it's as basic as just playing all these same scales. Just select that, put your bass line right there. Pick that note as your bass line. It's your B. So if you pick that bass line out, you'll be sounding like it's Locrian. It just simply won't sound like you're playing anything that great if you don't really have any other ideas with it. But if you've got like, a keyboard doing something kind of mysterious, and maybe there's some lyrics involved that are a little bit questioning, puzzling, something like that, you might find some use at not totally ignoring Locrian, but however, yeah, and staying away from diminished chords. Like me too, like right now, just to hammer through all the basics. But I find they're coming up time to time now. I think they'll do that for you too once you really get used to running in and out of the major scale in different ways. You'll get that hammered out, and then you'll want to add in some spice, and you'll look for different things, and then you'll go, oh, diminished chords, and that's kind of like where I am with diminished. You can use them in between chords, like in a major scale. I think you can use those sometimes on the in-between notes, and it'll really step you into that jazz sound, but there's a lot to handle there, and real quick to get lost. So, as I do with jazz. Still not really there yet, of course. But yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Red Walrus, thank you for participating and making it happen today. It was really great having someone to feedback with here. I had a backup plan just in case there was none of this. And you really helped nail everything I really wanted to say. So thank you. And yeah, so I'll leave you with that. I think probably everyone's probably worn out after an hour. I could go for another hour, but actually I did this to prep myself to make a real video, which now I'm kind of worn out and I want to go do something else, and I don't want to make a video which I really need to do for my channel. So got any ideas for a video, let me know in the comments on one of my videos or something. And as always, I thank everybody who's out there watching. I think one of those watchers is probably me, so it's probably just me and Mr. Red Walrus here, jam and outro. Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess we'll do the Mixolydian here, and I guess I was kind of having fun with what I recorded earlier, but I guess we'll just do this and make it, because that would be my E. All right, yeah, we got the rest of F-sharp Mixolydian here, so jam and outro, good idea. All right, man, I'm going to jam an outro, and I'll just click off at some point, so thanks for hanging out today, everybody. Thanks, Red Walrus. Well, we'll catch you soon. Catch me play the Victor Wooten trick there. Here's my pentatonic. So there are two notes in between there, and one of them is an avoid note. And this is the good one. And this is the bad one. So when I hit it, I quickly slide to the note in the direction I was headed, hit another wrong one, and I slid up. So in case anyone's still watching, I switched in between pentatonics there. I covered my Aeolian shape with the pentatonic. Actually, that was the Phrygian shape. And then at some point I went into the some other shape over some other mode there. I don't know. I'm getting too confused now. I guess it's getting kind of late in the lesson. So thank you guys all for watching, and have a great day.